What's up everybody, Cappuccino here, and in this video we will be going over best practices and techniques to effectively use Zarya's barrier abilities. When playing Zarya, the number one priority that you should focus on, at least initially, is to gain energy. A Zarya without energy makes little to no impact, and it's by effectively using your barriers, otherwise known as bubbles, that you will be able to gain energy, deal damage, and help your team. First, let's start off with her personal barrier ability. I'm going to go over three main scenarios that it is usually used for. Use your personal to gain energy before engagement. You want to position forward aggressively and safely to hold or gain space, but also gain energy from incoming damage. Try to hold it until you notice a significant amount of damage coming towards you before you bubble. The most important thing is to make sure you can safely get out. In this situation, I had a Reinhardt shield to kind of bail me out, but in this other situation, I used it to gain energy. I didn't get any energy, and I also had no way of backing out to safety, which ultimately led to my death. So if you're going to personal for energy, make sure you have a route of escape. Another use of personal bubble is to protect yourself. Unfortunately, I don't have an in-game example, but a hypothetical one would be getting hard focused by multiple enemies who are also committing their cooldowns or ultimates to eliminate you. Practice discerning whether the incoming damage is fatal. Sometimes you may waste a bubble early on minor damage, only to realize even more damage came after that leads to your death. You can also use your personal barrier to peel for teammates under pressure. In this example, I walk in front of the Reinhardt who's under pressure and absorbs some of the damage, giving me energy and also reducing some of the damage to his shield. On a final note of personal bubble, as you gain higher energy, it becomes less important to gain energy with personal bubble and more important to keep the cooldown in your pocket to enhance the survivability of yourself and your teammates when you really need it. Moving on to projected bubble usage. You want to prioritize whoever can give you the most value. What exactly is value? Value is a combination of factors. Whichever hero can give you the most energy, hold or gain the most space, or is about to die or be focused by enemy abilities. More often than not, your main tank will have the highest weight of all these factors since they are the front line of your team. Contrary to some beliefs, bubbling support heroes are lower in priority than you may think. Although supports are the weakest heroes in terms of HP pool, they generally don't take massive amounts of damage in a short period of time, especially when they are positioned correctly and have their abilities off cooldown. That being said, if you see they are hard focused by multiple enemies or abilities, definitely don't be afraid to give them the bubble. I know that's a lot to process, so let's go over a few examples to help you better understand good or bad barriers. This was a bad barrier. Not only was my Genji dashing away, giving up space, but he also was not in direct threat given he was at full health and had deflect off cooldown. If anything, I should have saved it for this Wrecking Ball who jumped in and could have used a barrier to hold the space and also give me energy. Another bad barrier, the Wrecking Ball wasn't taking any damage and also wasn't even trying to push in for space at all. Here are some examples of good barriers. I know my Genji is playing aggressive and I bubble him as he's dashing in, which gives me energy and also helps him effectively take space. Again, I know my Mei is aggressively going in, so I bubble her and it enables her to get additional eliminations. I also want to take this time to talk about using bubbles proactively versus reactively. In general, you want to prioritize using them proactively instead of reactively saving it for the perfect moment. So instead of waiting until someone gets hooked, you should look to bubble your main tank when he initiates in order to gain energy and create space. Saving bubbles will cause you to miss out on opportunities to gain energy leading up to a fight, which as mentioned at the beginning of this video is the main goal of Zarya and will help you maximize your impact in every fight. That being said, similar to personal bubble, you can probably save the projected bubble if you're already high energy or if you're trying to save up for some big ultimate combo. Now let's go over a few examples using it with main tanks who will most likely be your targets for the projected bubble. For Reinhardt, you want to bubble him when he is moving forward aggressively into the enemy, but it also is within swinging distance in order to deal damage. You also want to bubble Reinhardt when the enemy is hard focusing him, especially when they are committing cooldowns on him. You don't want to bubble Reinhardt when he's just standing stationary holding his shield, or if he's moving forward but there's no enemies around him to really swing at. It's better to save it for a more optimal situation. For Winston, you want to bubble him as he is landing or has landed, and you want to avoid using it when he is in midair, which is when he takes the least amount of damage. For Wrecking Ball, you want to bubble him when he is using his pile driver into the enemy. For Orisa, you want to barrier after her second shield has expired or been destroyed. Out of all the main tanks, I get the least value pairing with Orisa, and I recommend usually switching to a different off tank, which will probably offer more effectiveness than Zarya. As a general communication tip, don't ask teammates to do anything specific every single time, and instead, tell them what you're planning to do with your barriers and the status of your cooldowns. In this scenario, my Reinhardt is playing really scared, but I do have bubble off cooldown, but he doesn't know that, so instead I should probably communicate with him, hey, I have bubble off cooldown, Reinhardt, I will bubble you whenever you're ready to go in. Instead, he's just kind of hanging around, letting his shield get burned down by Orisa, and we eventually lose this fight. A final tip in closing. Usually your energy is a good indicator of whether or not you are using Zarya barriers effectively. If you find yourself with low energy most of the game, you either need to improve your barrier usage or potentially even switch to a hero that better fits the composition. As always, thank you for watching my videos, and special thanks to Spylo, a Contender's coach, for helping out with this barrier guide. Hopefully you learned something new, and if so, please give this video a thumbs up.